Hello guys, welcome to another session. In this session, we are going to do lab for AWS CloudFront. So let's look into the steps. What are the steps we are going to follow? So these are the steps which we are going to perform in this lab. So to configure CloudFront, we will first create a S3 bucket and upload the content. We will upload an image over here, and then we will create the CloudFront distribution and configure it. Once it is being done, then we will create an HTML file. That HTML file has the reference of the image, and that reference is of CloudFront distribution, which we have created in the second step. And once it is being done, then we will access the file, the HTML file, and we will verify that whether our image is loading or not using CloudFront distribution. Let's jump into the AWS Management Console and perform these steps. So we are into AWS Management Console. So let's create S3 bucket first. To create S3 bucket, you need to go to the storage and click on S3. So click here. So here we will create a bucket. Create a bucket, we will click on create bucket button that I have already explained in one of our session. And here you will provide a unique name. So we are going to provide, and that should be in a small case, which I have mentioned earlier, demo. And here you should provide a unique name. So you should write demo CloudFront. Choose a region over here, nearest region. For my case it is Asia Pacific Mumbai. Click on next. We will leave it the default option. We will click on next again, and here we will deselect the block all public access, then click on next, and here we will click on create bucket. So our bucket got created. Now go inside the bucket and upload an object. So click on upload button, click on add files, and here we will select an image file, then we will click on next. Then here the set permission, we will provide it as a public, as it is a demo one. So we will choose the grant public read access to this object. It is giving us a warning, that is fine. Next, and here we will leave the option as is. Click on next and click on upload. So it has uploaded that file. So we have performed the first step, that is we have created a S3 bucket, we have uploaded the content. Now moving to the second step, that is create a CloudFront distribution and configure. So let's go into the AWS Management Console. So here you can click on services, and here you will get into the network and content delivery. You need to select CloudFront, and here you need to click on create distribution. We have to select the web one, and here we need to specify the bucket which is going to be origin for this distribution. So we will select this bucket which we have created, and we will leave all the options as is. So let's look into the options which is being available over here. So you will find that there are various configuration is available which you can set as per your project need. So let's look into one by one. So origin domain name, which we already provided, where we have given the reference of our S3 bucket. Then we have origin path. This is an optional field. You can use this configuration when you want CloudFront to request your content from a directory of S3 bucket. Then you can specify like this, use slash and the name of the folder you can specify over here which reside in this S3 bucket. As we don't have, we can leave it as is. Next, moving to the origin ID. Origin ID is being auto populated. If you want to change, you can change it. Moving to another option, that is restrict bucket access. Basically this configuration you can use when you want that nobody can access the content using S3 URL, and you only want to distribute the content or serve your content through CloudFront. Then you can choose the yes option over here. This is useful in a scenario where we are using signed cookies to restrict the access to our content. On that time it is really very helpful. So for this demo we will keep it as is, the default option no. Now moving further, origin custom headers. If you have any custom headers, then on that time you can use it over here. So this is related to the origin settings. Now moving forward, and we will look into default cache behavior settings. So here the path pattern configuration, here mentioned asterisk. Asterisk means forward all requests to the origin as specified by the origin, whatever the origin setting we have provided over here. So it will forward the request to that origin. Now moving further, the viewer protocol policy. So here you can choose that HTTP and HTTPS protocol, as we are configuring the web CloudFront. So that means with the help of this configuration, you are telling that the content can be accessed using either HTTP or HTTPS protocol. If you want to specify only HTTPS, then you can use the third option. And suppose if you want your all content will be accessed through HTTPS, irrespective of user is typing HTTP request, then you will use the second option. So what will happen that when user type the web address using HTTP, then it will be redirected to HTTPS. Now moving further, another option or say another configuration that is allowed HTTP method. So here you can specify that what are the operations you want to perform if any request is coming from REST API to access the content of S3 using CloudFront with REST APIs or any of the web service technologies. Now moving further, let's discuss about field level encryption config. Field level encryption configuration used when we are using the private content. So on that time you will get this option enabled. Currently we are having a public content, so that means it is accessible from anywhere, so that's why it is disabled over here. So let's discuss about another configuration, that is cached HTTP methods. So this configuration is directly bind with the allowed HTTP method. Whichever you will choose, you will get the option over here. So if you specify that, you can get the option over here. What HTTP method you want to cache for this cache behavior? So in the default case we are using get and head. In cache based on selected request headers configuration, you can specify whether you want CloudFront to cache your object based on these values. So we will discuss about these values now. None option means CloudFront doesn't cache your object based on header values. Then we have other option called whitelist. And here you can specify which header you want to cache your objects, but in our case we are using S3. That's the reason it is telling that avoid using whitelisting headers. So these are the headers which is whitelisted headers. Whitelist header means it is a recommended from AWS. If you have any custom headers, you can insert those as well. Then moving further, we will have another option that is called all. So all CloudFront doesn't cache the object that are associated with this cache behavior. Instead, what CloudFront do? CloudFront sends every request to the origin. But we are going to stick with the default configuration, that is none. Now moving to the other configuration, that is object caching. With this configuration, you can control your object, how long the object stay in the CloudFront cache. If you don't want to change any configuration, then you should stick with origin cache headers. But if you want to customize it, then you need to select customize option. And then afterwards you need to mention minimum TTL. TTL stands for time to live, and also maximum TTL. The third option which you are getting over here is the default TTL. That is a representation of 24 hours period time. That is coming 86,400, and this value is representation of seconds. If you calculate 60 multiplied by 60 multiplied by 24, then you will find this value 86,400. That is a representation of 24 hours. Next configuration item is forward cookies. This option doesn't apply to an Amazon S3 bucket unless it's configured as a website endpoint. It is used to specify whether we want CloudFront to forward cookies to our origin server. And again here we are finding various options like whitelist and all. You can mention the whitelist, which are the whitelist cookies. And if you choose all CloudFront forward all cookies regardless of how many cookies your application is using. Now moving to the another configuration, that is query string forward and caching. So this is mainly related to the query string configuration, where you can specify forward all cache based on whitelist for query string forwarding and caching. Specify the query string parameter that you want CloudFront to use as a basis for caching. Now moving further to the other configuration, that is smooth streaming. So this configuration basically used for media distribution using Microsoft IIS server. So in our case we are sticking with no. Now moving further, so restrict viewer access has two options. One is yes, another one is no. Choose yes if you want request for object that match the path pattern which we have specified over here, the path pattern for this cache behavior to use public URLs. And you should choose no when you want request for object that match the path pattern for this cache behavior to use signed URLs. There is another configuration that is called compress object automatically. Compress object automatically configuration has also two options, that is yes and no.
choose yes when you want CloudFront can compress your content so that downloads are faster because the files are smaller, and that helps your web pages render faster for your users. We are sticking no with this setup. There is another configuration that is called Lambda function association. In this configuration, you specify the Amazon resource name of Lambda function that you want to add a trigger for. If you're not understanding all this Lambda function, just leave it. Just consider it as a way by which we can automate the process within AWS. I will be covering all this Lambda function in another course. For this course, it is out of scope. So just consider that it is one of the way by which you can automate the processes within AWS. Now we understand that default cache behavior settings. Now moving to the distribution settings. So first is the price class that is mainly related with the pricing thing. Then there is another configuration that is AWS WAF related to the web application firewall that helps you to monitor the HTTP and HTTPS requests that are forwarded to CloudFront, and it helps you to control the access to your content. There is another configuration that is alternate domain name. This is an optional configuration you can use when you want to specify one or more domain names that you want to use URL for your objects. There is other configuration that is SSL certificate. You can assign your issued SSL certificate by choosing custom SSL certificate option. In the other configuration item that is supported HTTP version, where you can specify the which protocol version of HTTP you want to use. There is another configuration that is called default root object. This configuration you can use it when you want CloudFront to return when a viewer request points to your root URL. When you specify the default root object, enter only the object name. For example, the root of your site, if it is index.html, then you should specify only the index.html without the slash. What I mean to say that, don't specify like this. You should specify only index.html when you are using it. In our example, we are not using it. There is another configuration that is logging. It has two options. One is on, another one is off. If you are choosing on option, then you need to specify Amazon S3 bucket that you want CloudFront to store access logs. CloudFront records information about each end user request for an object and stores the file in a specified Amazon S3 bucket. Now moving further, there is another configuration that is enable IPv6. If you want to use this protocol, you can use it. So by default it is available. If you don't want to use it, just uncheck this one. And if you have any comment, you can specify over here. And there is last configuration that is distribution state. If you selected enabled, that means as soon as the distribution is fully deployed, you can deploy links that use the distribution's domain name and users can retrieve content. So these are the details which I have discussed about all the configuration item of the CloudFront. If you have any doubt about any of the configuration, then you can refer these eye icon, that is for information, and it will also give you the detail about what this field is used for. So you can refer this icon anytime whenever you have any doubt about any of the configuration. Now moving further, we will click on create distribution with the default option. In this lab, we are going to use only this configuration we are providing and keeping all the things as default option. So let's click on create distribution. So it is in progress. The status is in progress. Once it is being completed, then I will come back. For now, I am just pausing it. Now CloudFront distribution has been created and deployed. Now let's look into the next step, what we have to do. Now we have completed creation of S3 bucket and creation of CloudFront distribution and configuration also we have completed. Now the third step, we need to create an HTML file and we will access with the CloudFront DNS, and we will use the cats image which we have uploaded while creation of S3 bucket. And when we have created the S3 bucket, on that time we have uploaded an image of cats. Let me show the image. So this is the image we will use in our HTML page, and we will access the HTML page from our CloudFront DNS. So let's create an HTML file and then we will upload that HTML file to S3 bucket, and that HTML file we will access through CloudFront DNS. So now let me show you the CloudFront DNS. So let's jump into AWS Management Console. To grab the DNS of CloudFront, you need to click on ID, and here you need to click on origin and origin groups, and this is the path that is the DNS path of CloudFront. So we will use this one. So now we will create an HTML file and then we will upload it to the S3 bucket, and that we will access through this DNS, that is CloudFront DNS. So let me open Visual Studio Code. So I am into Visual Studio Code. Let's create a file, HTML file. To do that, we need to go to the file, new file, and here we will create an HTML file. To do that, first save it as HTML, give it a name, mycats.html, save. Now we will write the HTML code. So I will use the snippet over here, HTML5, and here we will provide the title, mycats from CloudFront demo, and within that we can access the image. So to add an image, so here we can access the image, and here we need to provide the source. What is the source we are going to use? Here we will use the DNS of CloudFront. So let's grab the DNS. I will copy this DNS and then I will paste over here. After that, here we need to make sure that we will be passing HTTP, the object which we want to access from the S3. So let me grab the name of the object within S3. I am into my bucket. I will click on this bucket, and here this is the name we want. So grab this name and we will paste here. So that means this image is coming from CloudFront DNS. So see here we are using CloudFront DNS to access this image of S3 bucket. Now save it, give an alt name, mycats CloudFront demo, and then we will upload it into the S3 bucket, this HTML file, and this HTML file we will access from CloudFront DNS. So let me upload this file. To do that, let's go to the S3 bucket. So I am into S3 bucket. Come here, click on upload, add files, and here mycats.html, we click on next, and here we will grant the permission as a public access, then click on next, next, and upload. So it is uploaded now. Now we need to access this HTML file using CloudFront DNS. So let's do it. So let's go to CloudFront console, grab the DNS name, come here, /mycats.html, enter, and see here we are accessing mycats detail. So this is accessing from CloudFront DNS, and this is how you can configure CloudFront. Now we have done the exercises. Now as usual, we need to go to the management console and we can remove every services which we have used, as it is a demonstration, else it will be chargeable. So make sure that you can remove everything. You should come here and first remove the distribution, and then we will remove the S3 bucket. So we will first disable it. Yes, disable. Disabling and enabling will take time. So I am pausing the video. Once it will disable, we will proceed further. Now it is done. Let's select it and delete. Yes, delete, close. Now go to the S3 bucket and we will delete the S3 bucket. So we are into S3 bucket, select it and let's delete it. Now select action, and over here you need to select delete and click on delete. Once it is being done, now we need to delete the bucket. To do that, go to the Amazon S3, select the bucket and click on delete. And here you need to pass the bucket name and then confirm. So we have deleted. So we have deleted the bucket. Now check that whether it is accessible. So it is gone. So we have cleaned up everything. Now let's move to the diagram and let's look into that what we have learned. So in this exercise we have created S3 bucket, uploaded the content, and then we have created a CloudFront distribution. We have configured it. We have gone through all the configuration details of CloudFront distribution, and afterwards we have created HTML file, and in that HTML file we have used CloudFront DNS name to access the content of S3 bucket. So this is how we configure the CloudFront. So this is what I wanted to demonstrate you in this session. I hope you enjoyed the session. See you in the next session. Till then, bye bye, take care.